All right, we're going to be talking about 5.1, solving quadratic equations. So we need to solve when we have an equation, which means when we have an equal sign. So up until this point, we've been talking about quadratics and how to factor them. We're still going to use that, but now we're going to take it one step further. We also have what's called the square root method if we only have an x squared and not an x term also. Okay, so we're going to look at that one first. And this one's really quite easy. All you have to do is, if you have an x squared and no x, like this one right here, to get rid of squared, you take the square root. You take the square root. So we're going to take the square root of both sides. Now, this number could have been positive or it could have been negative. Anything squared is going to be positive. So if it was 5 squared would be positive 25, or negative 5 squared would be positive 25. So we say x is equal to plus or minus 5. So we still have two answers. We have x equals negative 5. Now sometimes we have a step before we can do that, like this one right here. I have to have x squared by itself before I can even attempt this method. So here I'm going to add 30 over first, which gives me 2x squared equals 30. Then I divide by 2 to get that x squared by itself. There, now that I have that by itself, now I'm ready to take the square root. So I'm going to take the square root on both sides. Remember, whatever was here could have been positive or it could have been negative, so equals plus or minus the square root of 15. Which gives me x is about, square root of 15 is about 3.87, or about negative 3.87. There are my two answers. Okay. Pause it and try this one, and then we will check it in class. When you're ready, hit play and we'll look at the next example. All right, now we've been working on GCF already. So this is the method we're going to use whenever we can take something out of both terms. So looking at this, we know we want it equal to 0, but it already is. But looking at this, we have an x squared and an x, and we don't have a third term, so we can see that there's something we can take out of both terms. We can actually take an x out. Remember, this is where we said, okay, x squared is x times x plus 15. Is 5 times 3, and then x. Okay, and we're going to bring down the equals 0. Here, they both have an x. So we can take an x out, and we're left with x plus 5 times 3, which is 15. Or for those of you that are getting really good at GCF, we can look at this and say they both share an x, so I can take an x on the outside, and x times x would give me x squared. X times 15 would give me 15x. So this is factored by GCF. Once it's factored, if you have two things that are multiplied together that equal 0, that means at least one of them is 0. So I can split this into two separate equations now. I can say either this piece right here equals 0, or this piece right here equals 0. Here I'm going to subtract and I get x equals negative 15. So I have two answers once again. All right, looking at the next one, we're going to start the same way. So I can look at both of these. I know 4 is 2 times 2. X squared is x times x plus 4x equals 0. Oh, oops, I didn't write down 4, did I? 4 is 2 times 2. And then we had x. Okay, so they both have two 2's and one x. So 2 times 2 is 4, and x. What I'm left with here is an x, plus if there's nothing here, I leave a 1 in its place. Or you could look at it and see that you can take a 4x out of both. 4x times x will give me 4x squared. 4x times 1 will give me 4x. Now that I have it factored correctly and completely, I'm going to set each piece equal to 0. So either 4x equals 0 or x plus 1 equals 0. And solve each individually. So here, if I divide by 4, 0 divided by a number other than 0 is always going to be 0. And then here we're going to subtract 1. We get x equals -1. All right, so once again, I have 2 answers. Pause the video, try the last example, and we will check it in class. When you're ready, hit play and we'll look at the next example. Okay. The other method we use for factoring was called trident method, and we use that when we have an x squared and an x, and we can't take out that GCF. Or maybe we can, but we still have 3 terms that we'll factor using trident. So here, there's nothing I can take out of all 3 terms. And I have a y squared, a y, and then a number. So this looks very much like all the trident examples we've done. So I'm going to start by multiplying the ends. Remember, if there's not a number here, the number is a 1. So I have 1 times 15. 15 is 1 and 15, or it's 3 and 5. Looking here, I know my signs are different because this is a minus. So I need -5 and +3 to get -2. So that gives me y minus 5, y plus 3. And that's all review for us. But now we have this equals 0 part, which means we want to solve. So I'm going to set each piece equal to 0, just like we did in the last examples. I'm going to say y minus 5 equals 0, and y plus 3 equals 0. Here I'm going to add 5 and get y equals 5. Here I'm going to subtract 3 and get y equals -3. All right, now looking at this next example, same idea. I check first for GCF, but there's nothing I can take out of all 3 terms. Then I multiply the ends. 5 times 6 gives me 30. I know 30 is 1 and 30. It's 2 and 15. It's 3 and 10. And it's 5 and 6. I know my signs are the same because this is a plus, and I want +13, so they must both be positive numbers. So I get +13 with the same signs. I'm going to want +3 and +10. Remember to write 5x plus 3 and 5x plus 10. I didn't give myself much room. Let's rewrite that. Here, I'll write it in green. So we have a little bit more room here. So we have 5x plus 3, 5x plus 10 equals 0. Once again, we still have to check to see if there's anything we can divide out. There's nothing I can divide 5 and 3 by evenly, but 5 and 10 can be divided by 5. So that gives me 5x plus 3. And here I'd have x plus 2. And then just like the last example, I'd split it into 2 cases. So I have 5x plus 3 equals 0 and x plus 2 equals 0. Here I'd subtract 3. Get 5x equals -3, divide by 5, and get x equals -3/5. Here I just subtract 2 to get x by itself and get x equals -2. And there are my 2 answers once again. All right, pause it, try the last one, or stop it and try the last one, and we'll check it in class next time. Thank you for watching. Remember, you're going to do odds on the new stuff, all on the review. Let me know if you need any help.